so much flour on this really nice dress. I wouldn't normally cook in this dress, but I'm, you know, making a video to put on the internet, so I wanted to look nice. Hello and welcome, friends, to Wingredients. If you're joining me for the first time, and if you're watching this video in November of 2020, then I know you're joining me for the first time because this is my first video. Every month, I take one ingredient and show you 3 things to do with it, or 3 ways to win with it, you might say. And this month, we're featuring Brussels sprouts. Now, when you buy your sprouts at the farmer's market, they usually come like this. And it doesn't fit in a tote bag, and it takes up an entire shelf in your fridge. And if you're cooking for 1 or 2 people, then this is a serving. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 3 dishes from this one carry-on luggage sized stalk of sprouts. Hands down, the best way to cook Brussels sprouts is to roast them. It's like they go into the oven as vegetables and they come out as candy. It's magic. I mean, it's science, but it tastes like magic. Especially with this honey balsamic glaze that I'm going to show you how to make later. So I've got a pound of sprouts here. I'm just going to trim the bottoms off and cut them in halves or quarters, depending on how big they are. For this recipe, you want all of the sprouts to be of a uniform size. For the other 2, it doesn't really matter. And the leaves are going to fall off as you chop them, but don't throw them out with the stems because those are the best part. They're going to crisp up in the oven and they're going to become like little Brussels chips. It's like its own built-in crunchy topping. So I'm going to toss the sprouts, leaves and all, with olive oil and generously season them with salt and pepper. Spread the sprouts around on a sheet pan, really spread them out. Oops. And then I'm going to put them in a 425-degree oven for about 10 minutes to start. And while those are roasting, I'm going to make my glaze, which could not be easier. So to the saucepan, I'm just going to add equal parts balsamic vinegar and honey. And I'm going to reduce this over medium heat, just until it's thick enough to coat the spoon. You don't want to reduce it all the way to syrup. And I should note that this is not an expensive imported balsamic vinegar. This is your average cheap grocery store variety. Once it starts bubbling, reduce the heat to low and then see how it kind of sticks to itself and sticks to the spoon. That's done. At the 10-minute mark, the leaves are going to start to get nice and brown and crispy, and I'm going to give them a toss just to encourage even browning. Then I'm going to put them back in the oven for another 5 to 10 minutes or until I'm happy with the texture. These are looking so perfect. Now I'm just going to taste one to make sure that they're as done as I want them to be. I can kind of tell just by how my fork goes through it that they're just like I like them. I prefer them a little bit on the al dente side, but that's just me. So if they're not done to your liking, put them back in the oven. You're the boss. That's really good. And I can't resist those crispy leaves. You hear that? Now I'm going to add my larger Brussels sprouts pieces to my glaze, but hold the leaves. And I'm going to toss them in there, give them a good coat. Now I'm going to transfer these to a serving bowl, a little bit more. I'm going to top it with the crispy leaves. Listen to that sound. Oh. And I'm going to finish it with just a little olive oil and some fresh Parmesan. And that is a beautiful bowl of sprouts.
Now I know I've talked your heads off about the crispy leaves. I'm a little bit obsessed. But that texture, in contrast with the really tender, larger pieces of sprouts, plus this glaze, which is both sweet and sharp, it just makes this dish really next level. Like I said, candy.
So because a Brussels sprout is basically just a tiny cabbage, a slaw is a natural choice, and there are lots of Brussels sprout slaw recipes on the internet. But every time I eat a raw Brussels sprout, I just wish it was cooked. So that's what I'm gonna do with mine. And it's got a lot of great fall flavors and colors and a really nice honey mustard dressing, and I think you're gonna like it. So the first thing I'm gonna do is make my dressing. I have a 1/4 cup of diced shallot here. To that, I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of honey, all the honey please, and about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. That'll do. And always salt and pepper. And I'm also going to add the raisins. And the reason I'm adding the raisins now is because if I let them marinate in that dressing for as long as possible, they're going to get pickled and juicy, and they're going to feel like an integral part of this dish as opposed to just an afterthought. Okay, so now let's work on the sprouts. And I've already prepped these, but I'll just demonstrate one to show you how it's done. Basically, I just trim the edge off like I did for the roasted sprouts, chop them in half again, and give them a quick, thin slice. And they kind of shred by themselves. All right, I'm gonna take them over to the pan and saute them. I've heated about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in this pan. And I'm just gonna give them a very quick saute, just a couple of minutes. I don't wanna cook the life out of them. I just wanna take the raw edge off. And maybe get some nice crispy brown edges. You know how much I like those. I'm gonna taste one to make sure the texture is good. Oh, I forgot to season them. Salt and pepper. When my sprouts are done, I got them in a bowl, to which I'm going to add some shredded carrot, some matchstick apples, or some apple matchsticks, and of course my dressing. And I'll toss to combine. Doesn't that look pretty? All those beautiful colors. And that's it. And you could enjoy this right now, or it's really best if you leave it in the fridge overnight and then bring it to room temperature the next day before you serve it. And there's so much room for creativity in this salad. I can think of a dozen things off the top of my head that would go nicely in here. Toasted nuts, pomegranate seeds, roasted squash. I usually get a kohlrabi in my CSA box around this time of year, and that sliced just like the apple would be really nice. And it's good by itself or as a bed for fish or for chicken. I would highly recommend it with salmon with these colors. It's just a really beautiful, really versatile dish. So remember in the first recipe how I wouldn't shut up about the crispy leaves? I thought another way to maximize that satisfaction would be some kind of pan-fried vehicle with direct leaf to oil contact. So what I'm gonna do for you is a traditional Chinese takeout style scallion pancake packed with Brussels sprouts leaves. And scallions, because why not? And they're really fun to make. The first thing I'm gonna do is add half a cup of boiling water to a cup of flour and mix with a fork to incorporate. Then once the fork has done its job, you wanna go in with your hands. Give your work surface a dusting of flour and just knead a couple of times until you have a smooth ball. I'm gonna let the dough rest for about 10 minutes while I make my dipping sauces. And those are really easy, you just whisk the ingredients together. So the first dipping sauce is a soy and scallion sauce. I'm gonna add equal parts soy sauce and white vinegar. And this is white wine vinegar, but any light colored vinegar will do. A teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of finely diced scallion greens. That's it. The next one is just a garlic mayo. So that's about a heaping tablespoon of mayonnaise, 1 clove of minced garlic, and a squeeze of lemon juice. So I'm going to take half of this dough roll it into about an 8-inch disc. Then I'm going to paint it or brush it with sesame oil. And I'm going to roll it up into a jelly roll. And then twist it into a spiral shape and sort of tuck the end under. Isn't that cute? Give it a little flatten with my palm. And then I'm going to roll it out into a disc again. Okay, now I'm going to do exactly the same thing I just did, but this time I'm going to add my filling. Give it a brush with sesame oil. And I'm going to sprinkle the scallions and Brussels sprouts right on the top. I prepped these sprouts, by the way, the same way I prepped them for the slaw. Halved them and then sliced thinly. A little salt. And we roll again. More carefully this time. Although if they poke through the dough, that's fine. That's what we want. This technique, by the way, of rolling and coiling and rolling and coiling, it's exactly the same as what you would do if you were making a puff pastry or a croissant or something like that. It's called lamination. And I'm not an expert baker, nor am I a scientist, but basically when you layer dough and fat on top of each other like this, that's how you get flakiness when it heats up. All right, and I'm loving how my Brussels sprouts leaves are sort of poking through this dough. It's not incredibly round, but you know, it's just a snack. Stakes aren't very high. And I like how you can still see that signature spiral in the middle. All right, those are done. So now I'm gonna take them over to the frying pan and get them fried. So I'm heating about 2-3 tablespoons of oil in my skillet. An 8-inch skillet will work best for this size because you want it to you want the oil to pool around the pancake a little bit. Now I'm just gonna carefully drop it in. It's a great sound. I'm just gonna leave that alone until I start to see the edges turning brown. And then I'll know when it's time to flip it. They're starting to get brown now. I'm gonna just lift it up to check. I can give it another 30 seconds or so. Look at that. And I'll just give it another minute or two on the other side. And when it's done, I'll just transfer it to a paper towel lined plate. Let it drain. Fry the other pancake. Listen to that crispy, crunchy sound. What I love about these is that the sprouts on the outside are crispy, but the sprouts on the inside are tender and chewy, and that almost mimics exactly the texture of the pancake itself. Mind blown. Ooh. Really nice flaky layers. This is a real treat. And there you have it, 3 ways to win with Brussels sprouts. You can find these recipes and more fun stuff on wingredients.com. Subscribe if you like what you see, and I'll be back next month with a brand new ingredient, 3 brand new recipes. See you then.